Washington, President JB here. Whenever Jill and I leave in our car, we tune in to our guy, Mike King Biz, on ESPN Richmond.
I enjoy listening to On the Mic with Mike every day. That's what I know.
Whoa, Mike King isn't a businessman. He's a businessman with his own talk show. On the Mic with Mike is the best business radio program in the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike. Mike King here. This is part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. ESPN Richmond 106.1, International Business Coach Radio, as well as the Hounds of Business Community. What we do is we talk to the best and the brightest. I have the good doctor in the house, Dr. Avula, running for mayor of the great city of Richmond. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
Alrighty, so tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Danny Avula. I am currently running for mayor. I've lived in Richmond for about 24 years. Moved here to go to medical school and served for a long time as the public health director for the city, for both Richmond and Henrico. I was commissioner of social services for the state for a couple of years, and I'm also probably best known around town for my work during COVID. I led initially the regional response and then ultimately the statewide vaccination response for all of Virginia.
Alrighty, came to Richmond to be, well, how long before did you ever want to be a doctor? How long was that?
I'm Indian, man. It's in the blood, right? I would say, that's probably something my parents kind of put in my mind from a very young age, and they were never super pushy about it, but they kind of curated an educational experience that led me in that direction, and so I've only ever known that I've wanted to be a doctor.
So shout out to my good friend Sonali Shetty out there, who I asked her, how come there's so many Middle Easterners in Henrico? And she says, Mike, we're not Middle Easterners, we're Indians. Mm-hmm. Okay? How are there so many Indians in Henrico? She says it's the technology part. I'm like, how are you guys so good at technology? She says, Mike, what you see in America is the best and the brightest of the country. She said, like, when we see Americans, we see the best and the brightest that you guys have to offer. She says, education is our national sport. It's our sport. And so that's what we're doing. Alrighty, so we know you as the COVID czar. That's how people got to know you.
Yeah.
What was the most fulfilling part about doing that?
That it was, we were doing incredibly difficult work under a lot of duress and a lot of uncertainty, but ultimately saved thousands of lives through the vaccination rollout. It was by far the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most meaningful work I've ever done.
When we're approaching it and it's at its height, when did you see we might have our arms around this thing right here?
Boy, when I was named the state vaccination coordinator back in January of 2021, we were 49th out of 50 states in terms of getting shots in arms, right? We just had a lot of confusion about where the vaccine was. We were having a hard time tracking the data. We dropped down to 50th in my first couple weeks on the job. It was a really rough start to the job. But what happened over the next 6 months was just this incredible coming together of public and private sector, listening to communities, connecting with the Black faith community, getting out into neighborhoods and really understanding why were people hesitant about getting vaccinated. And over the course of 6 months, we went from 50th to the top 10 most vaccinated state in the country. And so I think halfway through 2021 where I felt the momentum and people who you would never expect to want to get vaccinated in the far reaches of Appalachia or here in the inner city of Richmond, when I started to see that turn, I felt like, okay, we're going to get to the other side of this.
Because you're talking to different people.
That's right.
You're talking and have to convince people, different backgrounds, that this is something we need to do.
Yeah. And part of that, Mike, is understanding their story and their hesitancy around this, right? In Appalachia, that was a group of people who for 20 years had been suffering from the impacts of the opioid epidemic, right? And for them, that was an example of the federal government rubber stamping opioids and then distributing them through the community and then watching the devastation that occurred.
And now here we come back again with this thing we're telling you.
The federal government says it's okay. This is going to save your life. And of course they're going to be resistant and hesitant. So, and then similarly in the Black community, right, for decades, governmental public health has abused and mistreated the Black community. And so when we're rolling around with big public health initiatives, folks look back to Tuskegee or to forced sterilization or to the many examples of the way that governmental public health has not supported the Black community, and in fact abused the Black community. And they're saying, wait, how can we trust you now?
So what part did the faith community come in to sort of help, move folks to have an understanding the possibility that this vaccine would work?
Oh, they were absolutely essential. So my good friend, Dr. Rob Wynn, who's been on your show before.
Dr. Wynn.
That's right. When he got to town, he started this network of Black pastors, first in the Richmond area, and it really spread out during COVID. And it became this weekly virtual connection for so many faith leaders. I was on his show on a pretty regular basis, had the opportunity to educate folks about what we were doing at the state level, answer questions about the vaccination process, and really over time build trust with that group of folks. And they were the ones that when vaccines started rolling out, they were the ones who raised their hands saying, hey, I'll get vaccinated on TV. Hey, come to my church and we'll roll out vaccination efforts here. And so they played an incredibly important validating role because they already have the trust of their communities. And at some point over the course of 2021, and I don't know if the data still holds up, but we had higher rates of vaccination in the Black 50 and up community than we did in the white 50 and up community. And that never happens.
All right, Dr. Avula is here with us. So you're doing that. You go away. We don't see you anymore. And all of a sudden, I look up, Dr. Danny Avula is running for mayor. All righty, sir. What was the cry to do that?
Yeah. I've lived here for 24 years, Mike, and my wife and I both, our lives and our work has been committed to serving the city in different ways. Me through the angle of public health. My wife is a public school teacher at Chimborazo Elementary in the East End. We have 5 kids. They've all gone to Richmond Public Schools. We've been invested in our community in a lot of different ways, different community boards, different just being neighbors in the East End. And so when this opportunity opened up, it just felt like, man, this is a city that has been our heartbeat for 20 plus years. And what better way to serve than to try to take a shot at helping cast the agenda for the city.
Was this your idea or did somebody come to you with the idea?
When I was public health director, the charge of the health department was to improve health and well-being for communities.
Okay.
Right? And initially, we really focused on healthcare access to, do you have a doctor, do you have quality healthcare or not? But what public health came to understand over the last 20 years is that health and opportunity are much more about safe and stable housing, food security, economic access, living wage jobs, right? Those are the things that actually create opportunity and health for people. And so for the decade plus that I spent leading the health department, my work would increasingly connect with community development, with economic development. So probably a decade ago, there were multiple people who said, you should think about running for mayor at some point. And so I think that vision kind of grew and grew over the last 15 years.
Okay, well, Mike, Dr. Danny Avula is here. How can people get information out about your campaign?
Yeah, well, my website is dannyformayor.com, and it's FOR, not the number 4, dannyformayor.com. You can learn more about me and my story, our platform, and ways to get involved over the next week.
You had mentioned, shout out to Chimborazo Elementary. I had broadcast from there a couple of years ago.
Nice.
We took a radio show out there. The kids were amazing. Also had a great time there.
They are amazing. We should also shout out my wife, Miss Avula, who's a second grade teacher there.
That's right. All right, so hey, Miss Avula, you know what? Maybe you were there when we came. It was a couple of years ago. Congratulations to all the educators who are out there making it happen. All righty, so you get the idea you're going to run for mayor. Has it been what you thought it would be? The process.
Yeah, this is my first go at doing anything political. I would say it has been, we've done hard things, right? Like living through the first 4 or 5 months of COVID when that hit in 2020, and then again when the vaccines roll out and I got promoted to that state role. Those were the most intense, uncertain, 100-hour weeks. And so it's not the pace of running for office, because again, I've done a lot of hard things in my career. But it is the day in, day out, trying to prove yourself, trying to self-promote, trying to like win people about you, which is been hard. You know, like it's not what I've done in 15 years of public service. It's been about the work, and now it's about why I or my vision for the city might be better than somebody else's, and that's just a natural place for me.
So we look at the city now. Richmond's on a whole bunch of lists. The list to visit, restaurants, a party place, good for black entrepreneurial services. Everyone's out there. You're looking at the city a little different, and you're saying, okay, there are people, there are the haves and the have-nots.
That's right.
And what's your plan on helping people, not just from an economic standpoint, but really so that everyone or more people can share in the wealth of the city?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, part of my love for the city is the trajectory we've been on and the way that growth and development has happened and the way that we've invested in our natural resources. I mean, our park system, I'd hold that up against any park system in the entire country. Like, it's incredible. But your point and what has been the heartbeat of my work in public health is that we see this growth, we see this investment, but not everybody is benefiting from that, right? And when we really think and talk about racial equity, we see this widening of the gap in health outcomes and social outcomes. And so we've got to make sure that when Richmond is growing, that everybody benefits from that. And I think about, the 20 years that I've lived in Churchill, I've seen the neighborhood change a lot, right? We were, what we've seen is the displacement of low income, mostly people of color in my neighborhood. And so they're not benefiting from the growth that Richmond is experiencing. So as mayor, partly just thinking about the experience of my neighborhood, there are things that we could have done to protect long-term residents, to provide tax relief so that people aren't pushed out of their homes when property tax assessments rise by 20 and 30% over the course of a few years. We need to invest, and we've started to do this in recent years, but we need to really significantly invest in affordable housing through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or the Maggie Walker Land Trust to make sure that there are housing options that can keep people in their neighborhood and keep neighborhoods diverse.
Because if you look at it, there are houses, there are apartments being built. And like I said, I came to Richmond in 2014. When I'm saying $400,000 homes being built on Jenk Road, well, everywhere you look, there are new apartment complexes going up. $3,000, $2,500. That does not serve everyone.
That's right.
So we have to find a way so everyone can partake in this thing called the success of Richmond.
That's right. Yeah. I think it happens a couple different ways. One, we do need more housing production, right? We just know that there's such a desire and demand for people to live here. And so we have, from a city hall perspective, have to get the gears of city hall moving to actually work with the building community and actually produce more housing. So that will address the supply-demand economics of housing. But then we've got to be really explicit about affordability. We've got to define what that means and think about families who are making $50,000 a year and how do they afford to rent or to stay to own a home. And so that means that you've got to do things like the Maggie Walker Land Trust, where the actual land stays in a community land trust, but it makes the overall opportunity to be there affordable for lower income families. We've got to work with developers to subsidize housing so that if you make under a certain amount, you qualify to be able to rent an apartment. And so there's a lot of different tax incentives and other levers that we're not fully utilizing in the city, but that's got to be part of the next chapter here.
Dr. Danny Avula here with On the Mic with Mike. We see your commercials that are out there, and you're tapping into young folks who are out there trying to find their way. Let's get some time to talk about young people getting into the political process or understanding that they have a voice. Yeah. And they're important.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. They are literally the future of our country, right? And so it is so crucial to get them engaged, to help them understand, that voting matters so much, right? Like the future of our democracy is at the ballot box in this election. And so we need people to get out there and to understand, to do their homework, and to make sure that they're casting a vote. And that is absolutely true at the national level, but it also is really true at the local level. And one of the things I'm worried about this election is that we're going to have thousands of voters who show up on November 5th, and they're energized by what's happening at the presidential level and don't realize that there is a mayor, a school board, a city council that have enormous consequence for the future of our city. And so, yeah, it is absolutely important that young people both get educated about what these different levels of government do and the influence they have, but also, who represents their interests. Just last night, we were with the VCU NAACP, and we were doing a forum for VCU students to talk about issues that are of importance to college kids, which is really great. It was really heartening to see so many young college kids want to get engaged and educated.
All right, Dr. Avula is here with us. I talked to Andreas Addison a while back, and he had talked about Scott's Edition. And so I asked him, and also, so as a business owner, you're looking at the system different than when you're a legislator.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what's the difference? Because when you're on council, you're passing policy.
That's right.
And all those things. Now, as a business owner, you're going to the very same place that your policy takes part in.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, it looks different. It looks different.
I'm sure it does.
Because you're looking at it from a different perspective. You were the COVID czar.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot of people taking shots at you. They're kind of like, okay, if things are good, hey, we're going to give a thumbs up to, Dr. Danny. If things are not, what's Dr. Danny do? That's you. Now you throw your hat in the ring, and, politics people come at you.
Sure.
And talk a little bit about that. I asked people who are running for office, what is the draw to public service, knowing that that's going to happen?
Yeah. It really is. It's been our life. Public service has been our life. And I think that few things matter as much as trying to make your community a better place, a stronger community, trying to create opportunity, especially for the most vulnerable in your community. I think those are some of the same sentiments that drew me to medicine in the first place. It's what drew me to public health in the first place. It's what drew me to move into the East End 20 years ago and to really want to be embedded in community and make things better for everybody. And that's why I've stayed in government this long. It's why I've played different roles, both in public health and in social services, because I do feel really compelled by the fact that policy matters, government matters, and that we can really pull powerful levers to make lives better for all people.
We always hear this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah.
We always hear it. Sir, this one may be the one.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at this system, talk to people about the importance. So we see what's happening at the presidential level. But a lot of times people don't understand all of the down ballot races that play a part in your world.
Yeah.
Whether it's school board, city council. Talk about people being engaged and also down ballot understanding the power of knowing who your elected officials are on a local level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things for voters to do is to really understand, where different levels of authority lie. And so if people are really interested in making schools better in their community, for example, the mayor has a tremendous amount of influence on that, right? The mayor is the person who sets the city budget and decides how much every year is going to be invested in our schools. And so if we want to see things like more social workers in the classroom, better student-teacher ratios, more resources for kids who've come from generational poverty and don't have those supports, that's the mayor and city council making those decisions together about how much we're going to invest in a community. If we're going to attract business to a city so that we can create more jobs and more opportunities for young people coming out of high school and college, that's the mayor and city council that are doing that work to figure out how do we get the tax structure right? How do we partner with businesses to provide land or to provide incentives that ultimately are going to benefit our ecosystem, our economy here in this community? So so much. I even think about things like the cleanliness of the James River, right? We are making decisions as a city about how we're going to invest in permeable surfaces or in mass transit to get cars off the road. Like, all of those things have huge consequence for our environment and the future of our sustainability of our city. These are decisions that the mayor gets to make.
So what does an administration for Avula, the Avula administration look like? What are the things that right off the bat you're going to tackle? You kind of want hang your hat on?
Yeah, you know, in 7 months of campaigning, running around town and talking to so many different people, there's three things that are clearly there's a lot of concerns, but the three things that come up over and over and over are housing affordability, schools, and then the functioning of local government, right? This idea that your local government should be a place where if you want to pay a bill, you should be able to go online and do that instead of having to call and get handed off to multiple people and get navigated to the right place in City Hall. The sense that, you know, there aren't always people that are really about serving the customer. And so I think my focus and really my experience lends itself well to this because I've spent 15 years as an executive leader in the context of local and state government. So I've learned how to navigate bureaucracies, how to build teams and hire quality people in government, how to improve processes that are really focused on the end users of government. And so that's what I wanted. If I'm successful in City Hall, I want everybody to come away saying, wow, our local government really does work for us. When I call into City Halls, I get a friendly voice on the other side. When I go online, it's easy to figure out how to pay a bill. And so it's not sexy stuff, but I do think these are the nuts and bolts of local government that have to work. And then once we're doing those things well, we will have better financial management and see that there's more money to invest in schools. There's more money to invest in affordable housing. So those are really like the three things that I'm going to be very focused on if I'm elected on November 5th.
On the mic with Mike, Dr. Danny Avula is here with us. I'd like to thank you for joining the program. We always talk about culture and setting the right culture. Talk about what that means to you in an administration, in a business. How do leaders set the right culture or set the culture tone?
Yeah, I think leaders absolutely drive that, right? You know, and I think the work that I've done in organizations to do that is listening to the front lines, like really getting down, talking to the employees and understanding what their experience is in an organization, but then also thinking about what are we here for? What is our reason for being? And I think local government exists to serve the people of Richmond. And so the role of the mayor, the CEO of a $2.8 billion, 3,500 employee organization has to be to drive that vision. We are going to provide phenomenal customer service to the people of Richmond, and we're gonna make sure that the city governments work for the people, and that drumbeat just has to be constant, right? The leader of the organization has to hire the right leaders, drive the right vision, and make sure that all 3,500 of those city employees really get why we're here.
Alrighty, 7 days up. What's the wrap up? What are you guys going to be doing in the last days of the campaign?
Yeah, you know, we have executed so many different strategies over the last 7 months. We've done TV ads and mailers, and we've done a great job of getting the word out there, but there's still a sliver of voters who are undecided. And so it is really about getting on doors, getting to events, getting in front of as many voters as we can in these final 7 days, and trying to help them catch a vision for what the Avula administration would bring to Richmond and why they should vote for Danny Avula.
There you go, Danny Avula here. I'd like to give a shout out to some of my friends. Philip Noel, Mr. Noah is out there. How you doing, man? Carter Whitelow is there, as well as Dr. Will Melton, as well as some other folks. We'd like to thank them for coming on the program. Yeah, Randy Wilson, the Randy Wilson podcast. That's the guy.
I did read his podcast.
I'm telling you, I know.
I just saw him yesterday.
There you go. Shout out to all the folks out there. On the mic with Mike. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Now, take care.